All right, let's talk about some more of these week one matchups. We have a ton of games this weekend. It's an odd weekend in college football in that we get 5 days of games, so there's really a lot to cover this week. By the way, trivia question, let me know down below. What's a better week of college football, generally speaking? I'm not necessarily talking about specifically this year, but just generally speaking, what's a better weekend to you of college football? Opening weekend, 5 straight days of games. We always have a couple of big non-con matchups, right? Or rivalry weekend. It's tough for me. They're both great. Those are definitely my 2 favorite weekends of college football. But let me know down below which is your favorite. But I do want to talk about 3 of the games coming up this weekend in this video. You can see I've got them listed over here. And we're going to start things off with the Nebraska and Cincinnati game. This one's on Thursday night at 9 o'clock. This is a neutral site game for reasons unknown in Kansas City. And speaking of this Nebraska-Cincinnati game, I will be live streaming this game at 9 p.m. In fact, I'll go ahead and put my stream schedule up on the screen real quick. You can just pause it and screenshot this or whatever, but that's the streaming schedule for this channel and the Patreon page for week 1, Thursday through Monday. Link to the Patreon page is in the description down below. All right, let's talk about Nebraska and Cincinnati. Now, Nebraska's a favorite in this game. They're favored by 6.5 or 7, depending on where you look. Year 3 for Matt Rule at Nebraska, and if you know anything about Matt Rule, that means there's going to be some expectations this year for him. You add to that the fact that they've got a returning quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who got the start last year as a true freshman. So you got 2 different things going on here, both positives for Nebraska, I think. You have Matt Rule's track record from years 2 to 3 at his previous college football coaching destinations, and you've got just sort of the general rule of thumb that a quarterback tends to get better in his second year as a starter, especially when the first year was a true freshman year, when you can expect certain kind of freshman mistakes to happen, right? And Dylan Raiola showed some signs last year of being a really good quarterback. In fact, Nebraska had their best year in about a decade last year with Dylan Raiola at quarterback. They got bowl eligible, which is something they've been unable to do for a long time. Now, there are some people who think Nebraska could push for a playoff spot this year, possibly that 3rd or 4th spot from the Big Ten maybe. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, although there is a path to 10-2 for Nebraska if you look hard enough. It involves them beating Michigan and pulling off a couple of upsets in the middle and second half of the season. But I do feel like Nebraska will take a massive step forward in that I don't think Nebraska is going to be fighting for bowl eligibility the last couple of weeks in November, which has been the case for them the last few years. I expect them to take a big step forward. Cincinnati, on the other hand, is sort of the opposite story of Nebraska. They were a group of 5 team and one of the better group of 5 teams for a 3 or 4 year period, of course, under head coach Luke Fickell, who's now busy tanking Wisconsin. But the last few years for Cincinnati have been headed in the wrong direction. They're, of course, a Power 4, we're calling them now, I guess, Power 4 team in the Big 12, Cincinnati is, and they've got back-to-back losing seasons. They've been heading the opposite direction, Cincinnati has. So you got Nebraska sort of been trending up the last couple of years under Matt Rule, and you've got Cincinnati sort of been trending down the last couple of years since leaving the Group of 5 and joining the Big 12 as a Power 4 team. When I look at this game, the biggest mismatch to me occurs along the lines of scrimmage. Nebraska has legitimate offensive and defensive lines. You go back to last year and you watch the Nebraska-Ohio State game, which admittedly was one of the worst games Ohio State played. That wasn't indicative of what Ohio State was for the majority of the season. Definitely not indicative of what they were at the end of the year on that playoff run. But Nebraska was able to dominate Ohio State along the lines of scrimmage in that game and really disrupt everything Ohio State wanted to do offensively, and damn near won that game, Nebraska did, and had a really good chance to win it there at the end. Cincinnati's offensive and defensive lines just don't stack up to what Nebraska is going to be putting on the field this week. It's a neutral site game, so you kind of take the crowds out of it, so maybe no real advantage there. But I think Dylan Raiola will be the best quarterback in this game. I think Matt Rule is the best coach in this game, and I think Nebraska is the best team in this game. I love Nebraska in this spot here to win and cover the 6.5 or the 7. I think they win this game by a couple of scores. Give me Nebraska later points. All right, let's move on to the Georgia Tech game. Georgia Tech travels out west and up into the mountains to take on Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffs. The Buffs, of course, without Shedeur Sanders, without Travis Hunter, without Shiloh Hunter, Shiloh Sanders, and some of those wide receivers from last year. It's going to be kind of a new look Colorado. In fact, this year's Colorado team reminds me a lot more of Deion's first Colorado team as opposed to last year's Colorado team. If you remember Deion's first year, we didn't really know what to expect coming out of the gate. We didn't really know what kind of offense they were going to run. We didn't really know what kind of defense they were going to run, what their style or philosophy would be, how good or not good they would be. It was just almost like an expansion team in the NFL because of all the new players they had added through the portal. Some of them were good, some of them weren't. First season wasn't great. Last year they did okay at 9-3. But you look at this year's Colorado team, and it's kind of the same thing. They lose all those guys, so they bring in a bunch of new faces. They just named Caden Salter the starting quarterback over true freshman Julian Sayin, so they got a transfer quarterback. No more Travis Hunter, either defensively or on the offensive side of the ball, to sort of bail them out either way. And a lot of new faces on both sides of the ball because of the transfer portal. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, returned 7 starters on offense, 7 starters on defense. Haynes King is back at quarterback, one of the, I think, most overachieving quarterbacks in college football last year, Haynes King. Now, he wasn't great through the air, but they really didn't have to be. They were more of a running team, including what Haynes King's able to do with his legs. And again, similar to the Nebraska-Cincinnati game, that's where I see a massive advantage here for Georgia Tech. Is going to be in the run game and on the lines of scrimmage. Colorado, over the last 2 years, cumulatively, y'all love it when I try to use big words, don't you? Yeah, you do. They're the worst team at running the ball over the last 2 years. In almost any stat you want to look at, total yards, attempts, yards per carry, yards per game, yards for the season, whatever you want to look at, Colorado has been the worst rushing team in all of FBS over the last 2 years. So out of 139 teams, is that what we're up to now in the FBS? I'm losing track because it seems like we're adding some every year. But it's around 140 or so FBS teams. Colorado's dead last when it comes to running the ball, and they really struggle to stop the run too. So while I think Georgia Tech offensively may be more dynamic this season, 2025, than they were last year, in other words, maybe a little bit more through the air, I don't know that they need to do that in this game here. They're traveling. It's a road game. The one area where I would say Colorado, might sneak up on you would be offensively, because you just don't really know what to expect. So part of the game plan, if I'm Georgia Tech, would be to keep that offense off the field for Colorado and to just beat up on them along the lines of scrimmage when they have the ball by pounding that ball between the tackles. And I think that's what Georgia Tech's going to do. I think they're going to run the ball here until Colorado forces them not to, or until Colorado proves they can stop it. Long, drawn-out drives with a lot of first downs, not a lot of 20-yard runs maybe for Georgia Tech, but a lot of 2nd and 5s for Georgia Tech after 5-yard gains on first down. And, of course, Haynes King can do some of that with his legs, too. He's a great runner between the tackles, a lot like Riley Leonard was last year at Notre Dame. So I think Georgia Tech plays keep away here and plays good enough defensively to limit Colorado, especially explosive plays through the air. I think Georgia Tech will force everything underneath, try to make Colorado drive the length of the field, too, as opposed to giving up big chunk plays. I think in general, you're looking at probably a low-scoring game here. This game is on Friday night, by the way, 8 o'clock. Georgia Tech on the road at Colorado. Georgia Tech's a 4 or a 5-point favorite, depending on where you look. The over-under sits at 52.5. I kind of like the under here, too. I don't think Georgia Tech I don't think the game plan for Georgia Tech is to score 40. In fact, I think they would prefer to keep it more low scoring, like I mentioned, and keep Colorado off the field offensively with long, drawn-out drives for themselves. But I do think Georgia Tech wins this game over Colorado. Just a massive experience edge here. Deion beat cancer, and that's great. We're all, of course, happy for that. But he missed a lot of time in the offseason. How much, if at all, did that affect Colorado? We don't know. Obviously, all the other coaches were there during offseason workouts and things like that. But Deion was not. He's there now, thankfully. It just feels like Georgia Tech is the better and more experienced team here. They do have to travel, so it's a road game, and that can always be a concern. The elevation has been brought up. How will Georgia Tech respond in the second half? It can be tough to play in elevation. I wonder if maybe the heat that Georgia Tech is used to practicing in, as opposed to the low temperatures they'll see in Colorado this weekend, I wonder if maybe that doesn't sort of cancel out the elevation. We'll see. I don't really know about that, but I do think Georgia Tech wins this game and covers to 4 or 5 points. I could see Georgia Tech winning somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 to 10 points, 27-17, 24-14. 28-20, something like that. I'm going to take Georgia Tech, the favorite again here, and lay the points. All right, Syracuse and Tennessee, the Battle of the Oranges. The Tennessee Orange is sort of a nickname for them a little bit. And then, of course, Syracuse literally is the orange, the fruit there. Both these teams had good seasons last year. Tennessee, of course, 10-2 in the regular season, missed out on a chance to play for the SEC championship game, but did make the college football playoff before getting absolutely humiliated on the road at Ohio State. Syracuse didn't make the playoffs or the ACC championship game. They missed the playoffs by about a game. They were one of those 9-3 teams that was sort of on the outside looking in. They did get to 10 wins after a bowl win, but in Fran Brown's first year as head coach there at Syracuse, nobody saw that coming. They were one of the positive surprises of the 2024 season, last year's Syracuse team. That's the good news. Bad news, and this is the case for both teams, both of these teams have lost an unbelievable amount of starters and talent off of each of their last year's teams. You start with Tennessee on offense. We all know what happened with the quarterback situation. Nico left them high and dry there at the end of spring practice. They went out and got a group of 5 guy, and he's been named a starter, Joey Aguilar, over some second-year guys like Jake Merklinger that Tennessee had on the roster. So Tennessee's got a new quarterback. A couple of new starters along the offensive line. They lose their best running back and the SEC Player of the Year last year, Dylan Sampson, who led the SEC in rushing. He was by far the best player on Tennessee's team last year. He's gone off to the NFL. And Tennessee loses their top 3 wide receivers. So you're talking about quarterback, running back, offensive lineman, and your top 3 wide receivers from last year all gone off of Tennessee's team. They do return a significant portion of their defense, but they lose one of their best players, if not the best player last year from that defense, James Pierce, the edge rusher. Boo Carter is back, kinda, although it's not clear that he wants to be. He is back in the secondary. Gerard McCoy is back. They've got some talented pieces, and I expect Tennessee to have a good defense again in 2025. Offensively, though, it's hard to imagine Tennessee being really even anywhere close to what they were last year offensively. And they're going to say, well, Nico wasn't even that great, the Tennessee fans. Now, meanwhile, the whole time he was there, they were telling us he was going to win 5 Natties and 17 Heismans. Now that he's gone, he's no good. You know that story. Fan bases do that when a player transfers out. And I'll admit Nico was underwhelming. But the loss of Dylan Sampson is huge. And losing your top 3 wide receivers is huge, regardless of who the quarterback is. So a lot of new faces offensively on the field this year for Tennessee. You look at Syracuse, kind of the same story. They lose their quarterback from last year, Kyle McCord. They brought in 2 different transfers. They're going to go with Angeli, the transfer out of Notre Dame. So he'll be a first-year starter there. Joey Aguilar at Tennessee at least has a couple of years' experience as a starter. It's group of 5 experience, but it's experience nonetheless. Angeli, the transfer from Notre Dame, has very little experience at all. Syracuse also lost their leading wide receiver from last year to the transfer portal and several key pieces on defense. Now, last year's team was built through the portal. This year's team also built through the portal. Last year it worked. Will it work this year? I don't know. I'm not really a believer in reworking your team year after year through the portal. I still believe the best way to build a college football program is the old school way, through high school recruiting, and to use the portal to sort of plug pieces here and there. Now, a lot of times when you're a new head coach, you don't have that option initially. And so you have to do that maybe the first year. We'll see what direction Fran Brown sort of goes from here with that kind of approach, high school recruiting versus portal. We'll have to just wait and see on that. But 9-3 last year, 10 wins in his first year there. And Fran Brown, before he was the head coach at Georgia, was what? Co-defensive coordinator at Georgia. Georgia has solved the Josh Heupel riddle. For whatever reason, however they've done it, I don't know. It's not just that Georgia keeps beating Josh Heupel in Tennessee. Tennessee scores to get first downs against Georgia. Fran Brown was there for some of that. Who knows? Maybe he's on the phone with Kirby. That would burn the Tennessee fans up, wouldn't it? And I'm all for that. Tennessee fans still think the only reason they lost to South Carolina 120-30 or whatever the score was a couple of years ago is because somebody from Michigan called South Carolina and told them Tennessee's plays, even though Michigan and Tennessee had never played. But anyway, so, hey, Tennessee, man, you think Fran Brown's on the phone this week with Kirby Smart? All joking aside, He probably is. He probably is. He's probably talking to Kirby to get some pointers about this Tennessee offense. Actually, probably is. Um, I think Tennessee will win this game. They're about a 2-touchdown favorite, depending on where you look. It's 13.5 or 14. Tennessee is favored. Now, Tennessee has a history under Josh Heupel of absolutely destroying non-con opponents early in the season. It tends to be the conference schedule where they struggle a little offensively to score. That was the case last year. Certainly, they beat NC State, an ACC team, last year in a non-con game early in the year by about 100. I think this is going to be a much closer game. I don't think Tennessee is going to be nearly as good as they were last year. I don't think they're falling off a cliff. I've got them at 8-4, but I don't think they're going to be anywhere near a playoff caliber team this year. To be fair, I don't think Syracuse is either. But there's so much new here offensively for both teams. I feel like this will be a low-scoring game, and for that reason, I'm going to take Syracuse plus the 14. Not because I think they're going to win the game. It would be hilarious if they did. It's always funny when Tennessee loses. I do think Tennessee will win the game. But because there's so much new here, I'm going to take Syracuse and the 14 points, and I actually love the under here. You can find 51.5 in some places. It's 50. It's 51 most places. Under 51, under 51.5 points scored in this game. I absolutely love that. Even if I'm wrong about Tennessee offensively, which I'll admit there is a possibility because Josh Heupel's a good offensive mind. I could be wrong about Tennessee offensively and they end up being really good. If that's the case, okay, they win the game, 35-10 maybe. That's still under the 50 points. I expect Syracuse probably to score a couple of touchdowns here, 27-14, 30-20, something around there. So give me Syracuse in the points, although I do think Tennessee wins, and give me under 51 in the total. All right, there you go. There's my thoughts on 3 of the games coming up over a 5-day span starting this Thursday night. Again, I'll be live at 9 o'clock on Thursday for Nebraska and Cincinnati. I'll put my full streaming schedule up one more time here at the end. You can pause the video and screenshot it. That's when I'll be live watching college football here on YouTube. Thursday through Monday. There's a couple of Patreon streams in there too. The link to the Patreon page is in the description of the video if you want to check it out. We have a really good time over on the Patreon page. This weekend's a little unusual because we've got 5 days of games. Generally, all the games are on Saturdays with maybe a halfway decent game on Thursday or something. So generally, I only live stream games on Saturday, and generally we do it on Patreon. But because there's 5 days of games, I'm spreading it out a little bit here. I'll be on YouTube some to watch some of these football games and hang out with you guys. So if you're going to be watching football this weekend, Labor Day weekend, from Thursday to Monday, come on over to the channel, hang out. We have a really good time with these watch parties or whatever you want to call it, where we just kind of hang out, watch the games, talk about what we see, that kind of thing. But let me know down below what you think about these 3 games. Nebraska versus Cincinnati at a neutral site in Kansas City. Georgia Tech on the road to face Deion in Colorado. And Syracuse and Tennessee, neutral site in Atlanta. What do you think about it? Let me know down below. Appreciate you watching. Have a good morning.